we've been trained and reinforced from the time we were 5 and went to school to be performative on the mental level. Perform, perform, perform. So to say now get in your body and feel, unless you were raised to be a pro athlete and really be in your body, it's been a long time since anybody rewarded you for being in your body.
In today's busy world, how can we find the inspiration, knowledge, and energy to live a healthy and empowered life? If we balance and harmonize our mind, exercise our body, live according to the laws of nature, and connect to spirit, can we find a way to heal, become our authentic self, and live our purpose with love? I am your hostess, Amy Fournier, and welcome back to Awakening Aphrodite. The reason why I absolutely love the Paleo Valley apple cider vinegar complex is they contain not 1, but 5 powerful organic superfoods.
I love apple cider vinegar because it's been, revered for centuries, but not that many people use it today. And it has ability to kind of improve fat burning and to reduce blood sugar. I also just interviewed this wonderful woman who studied antidepressive effects of apple cider vinegar.
Really?
Yeah, and she didn't yet pinpoint the mechanism, but it was in a group of college students. It was really clear that it did exert some sort of antidepressive effect. And then we combined it with cinnamon and ginger and turmeric because these are all very metabolically supportive spices that not a lot of people are consuming. So this is kind of like improving your digestion, keeping your blood sugar stable, actually helping you to eat less. And so yes, just a complex of different spices and foods that will work with your body.
Please consider adding apple cider vinegar, organic of course, to your diet like I do. You can go ahead and find it on my website under the recommended products. Just scroll down and find Paleo Valley. You'll see all their wonderful products there, which I use all the time. You can use my coupon code to save 10%, Amy Fournier 10. That's all caps, AMYFOURNIER 10. Enjoy. Hey, just cutting in here. I really hope you're enjoying the show because I want to share with you something that's changed my life. It's called the Core Harmonizer. And I've got my friend Ross here, and he's going to talk about what the Core Harmonizer is, and most importantly, why it's changing people's lives, not just my life, but pretty much everybody that's exposed to this beautiful piece of technology, what they're saying to Ross. What are they saying to you, Ross?
Well, thank you, Amy. First off, the Core Harmonizer uses light, music, and nested geometries to create a coherent environment. And when people are in this environment, sometimes some pretty awesome things can occur. I talked to a woman the other day who was dealing with the aftermath of a stroke. She had recently purchased a Core Harmonizer, and she called up to tell me that she was doing quite well. And she was very optimistic. So this technology helped assist her in that. And the beautiful thing is she did this herself. So she was in a coherent field environment and she raised her own vibration. She chose to do it. It's an active thing. But this technology really helps facilitate that. And it's really important. A lot of us are struggling with a lot of big things, and having the support around us constantly is very, very helpful and necessary.
100%. And that's why we had you on my show. That's why we did a whole episode of it, number 105. If you want to check out a deeper dive with Ross, what we're talking about here, coherence, what it is. And it's a big part of my show because this is about a lifestyle, right? It's holistic health and wellness, inside and out, how we can empower ourselves. So this is a perfect fit for my offering to the world, for you and I to collaborate, because this is a way that people can empower themselves to create a beautiful, harmonized, relaxing, calm environment to help raise their vibration and get them on a frequency that's just a higher resonance, just help you feel more at peace. We're all looking for peace. Check out more in episode 105. You can get yours at a special discount on my website. Under the recommended products page, just enter the code FITAMYTV10 and you save 10%. Thanks, Ross. Welcome back to Awakening Aphrodite with Amy Fournier. This show is about helping you to be healthy and fit in mind, body, and spirit, as well as harmonize your masculine and feminine energy, tap into your intuition, your true source of power, and awaken your authentic self. Today, my guest is Christine Lang. Christine is a medical intuitive, and she helps people understand how their physical symptoms contain messages from their spirits. With Christine as a translator, her clients engage in profound conversations with their spirits, and they learn about relationships, self-judgment, healing, and forgiveness. Christine has a very interesting journey that we can all learn from. And like so many of my guests on Awakening Aphrodite, she came to a point in her life where she kind of had an epiphany and pivoted completely, did a hard turn right, and changed her career and her life. She was previously a very successful attorney, and she basically was suffering some allergies. So she was having personal health issues, and she couldn't get any help through conventional methods. Like so many people, she went on a journey. She went on a search to find, how can I help myself? I'm not going to be taking Claritin for life or walking around with a box of tissues every spring. So there's got to be some answers for me. And whoop, that just opened up the floodgates for her to her new amazing life. She discovered that she has this special gift, which I believe we all have at different degrees and others. She can actually see energy. She can see people's energy, and she can actually have conversations with people's spirits. Woohoo! That's pretty crazy, huh? But yep, she's doing it, guys. She is a very successful practitioner, and she's been doing this for decades. And I love that we have this conversation about the critical mind-body connection, which so many of us just don't really quite have a good handle on. We understand it intellectually, but are we really living it and tapping into that very important communication from our body? We're not taught this stuff. So how can we learn about possible medical and emotional factors that might be underlying our symptoms? I mean, this might be for you if you're somebody who's checked all those boxes of the foundational components of a holistic, healthy lifestyle. That's what I always say. You got to get the foundations right. They're not sexy. They're not fancy. They're not even expensive. But you've got to nail them down before you start getting into the esoteric and the more complicated, fancy stuff. What am I talking about? Well, drinking clean, filtered, structured water, getting to sleep by at least 10 p.m. and getting good sound quality sleep, having people in your life that support you and have your back and you can trust and that you have fun with, having a meaningful purpose in your life, even if it's just being a really great mom. That's a very there's nothing more important than that. But I'm just saying that doesn't mean a career. It just means feeling like your life has meaning and purpose, something that really gives you value for your self-esteem. Obviously, eating clean food, healthy food, natural food that is not full of pesticides and GMOs and improperly raised animals. And all those other factors, grounding, earth, nature, sunlight, these are all foundational factors. But once you've checked all those boxes and you're still having symptoms like allergies or anemia or arthritis or thyroid problems or weight problems, pick your thing, then you might want to start considering other possible explanations for your physical symptoms because your body is always talking to you. It's just a matter of us understanding the communication, the language that our body speaks. And I'll add, it's different for all of us. But Christine has found patterns in her decades of working with people as she's helped them resolve their problems and their health issues. So some of the things we talk about in this episode include her pivot from being a lawyer to a medical intuitive, as well as how I actually asked her how she navigated the masculine and feminine as a lawyer. Could she give us some examples of that so we could learn? We talk about parenting and the importance of asking questions, how body symptoms are always biosymbolic, the importance of safety in health, help getting into your body and how to actually embody your body more so you can actually feel and interpret the symptoms and the communication. And Christine reads me. We weren't planning on doing that, but we always go with the flow on the show because it's live. And she talks about a reading of what she found that was in my energy field. So you're going to want to listen to that. And Christine gives us her tips on how we can hear our own spirit so we can read ourselves. We can be our own medical intuitive. And she also gives some warning advice to all those TikTok famous wannabe people out there, all the people in social media world, particularly the younger generations who really their main goal in life is to be amazing and fabulous and famous. And what's more important than being famous, fabulous, and amazing? So you're going to enjoy this episode. You can check out Christine's work as well as hire her to read you and her amazing book, The Body Whisperer. And that's in the show notes. So please enjoy the show. Thank you for being here. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for leaving a review. Please tag me at FitAmyTV on Instagram so I can come say hello to you and we can connect. And you can check out all my favorite stuff with my coupon codes over on my website, amyfournier.com. Let's now join Christine Lang. Welcome back to Awakening Aphrodite with Amy Fournier. Christine, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Wow. Okay, so here's her book, everybody. As I mentioned in the intro, The Body Whisperer. Your symptoms tell me your truth. Guys, Christine, I've probably had this in my bookshelf. I swear I think I had this in college, okay? This book has followed me around my life. That makes me very old. I know, right? Probably not. After I said it, I was like, maybe not that long. But a long time. Okay, it's one that I will not give away. I won't donate. I won't anything because it's a classic. And ever since I was, definitely in college, I started studying. Back in that day, there wasn't any kind of like mind-body courses or any of that. So back in that day, it was called sports psychology, which was the mind connection to the body. I know, crazy, right? Again, this is, back in the dinosaur age. So when this book came out, I was like, yeah, see, this is what I've been talking about, that there's something going on with the mind-body connection. It's always been my jam. And I'm so glad that now it's finally becoming a little more mainstream. To some, it's still very poo-poo, but that's fine. But the point is that at least a whole slew of people are more open to, all right.
Oh, yeah.
What's going on here? Okay. And let's start with what you think of a definition of a holistic health and wellness is and how that mind-body connection comes into the picture.
I think of holistic healing or holistic health is really encompassing the whole of your life, not just your body, not just your psychology, right? But all of it. So if someone goes to a traditional Western medicine or allopathic doctor because they have back pain, they really want the medicine, right? They want the anti-inflammatory or the muscle relaxer or whatever so the thing is to make that specific symptom go away. But if you're pursuing holistic healing, particularly with me, I want to say, well, let's assume that back pain is a conglomeration of stress in your life that's residing right there because your spirit's trying to tell you something, your body's trying to tell you something about the dysfunctional areas in your life, so that as we get insight from your spirit and heal the back pain, your whole life up levels, right? All the dysfunctional areas get addressed that are feeding into that. So yes, the symptom goes away, but also your life gets improved in all these other areas. It's improved holistically.
100%. And this, we're just so aligned in that regard. I mean, like I mentioned to you earlier, you sound like me in a lot of the things you say. So it's nice to hear an echo back to myself. It's really, really beautiful. But what I love the most about you is that, you're just living proof of it. I mean, how long have you been doing this, Christine, doing medical?
I started doing it probably 35 years ago. So I was a practicing lawyer for some years, and then my abilities surfaced and I resisted it for a little while and then stepped into it fully and started to practice.
I love it. Okay, you've got to give the audience the little snapshot on how, I know you've probably said this in 35 years a million times, but this is very important because you are the perfect example for my audience of a woman who was predominantly in her masculine as a lawyer and pivoted into her feminine, into her intuitive self, and now is on the other side of it, because that enabled you to live your dharma, your true calling, your true talent, your special gift. And you're a beautiful example for the rest of us that are following behind you, trying to do the same. Because Awakening Aphrodite, that's truly the premise of my show, is for those women like me who have been very feminine identifying, but kind of operating mostly in their masculine energy. And we really want to make that shift, like you have, to more in the feminine, or at least incorporating her, integrating her, living a little bit more in her, so we can be all of who we are. That's really what the whole thing's about. So I was thrilled to hear your story, in addition to what you can do and your abilities as a medical intuitive, that story of how you started. So please share that with us, and then please go into how you made that transition for those people who were trying to do so or know they need to do so as well.
Okay, so when I was in law school, my second year of law school, I developed awful allergies, and I'd never had allergies before. And all of a sudden I'm like sneezing like crazy. My eyes are watering. I was, a mess. And it was before the days of the meds they have now that don't make you drowsy. So my options were, take Benadryl and drink Diet Coke all day long to stay awake, or walk around with a box of tissues. And both options were awful. And I kind of muddled through law school. And when I got out, I thought, this is insane. There has to be a better way. It was the early 90s. And I started studying what was then called alternative medicine. And I realized I made the connection between how stressed I was and how bad the allergies were. So I'm like, okay, how do I get rid of some of my stress? So I started taking Tai Chi classes and yoga classes, and started studying Taoism and Buddhism and meditating. And I realized that when I meditated and lowered my stress, my allergies were better. So I knew there was a connection there. And it was like this trail of breadcrumbs the universe was leaving for me. And I started learning how to do Reiki or healing energy treatments. And before I would offer a friend an energy treatment, I would say, let me get home, take off my lawyer suit and sit and meditate just to change channels in my brain. And I found that when I did that, I would hear a word or hear a phrase or see a visual that made no sense to me. And then I realized, I think it's about the friend I'm about to give energy to. So I summoned my courage and said, does this phrase mean anything to you? And my friend's eyes flew up and she's like, how do you know that? That literally just happened to me last night. I'm like, maybe these random words aren't so random. And I started realizing that I was getting information about the friends that I was going to offer energy to. And so, as you were just talking about that male-female paradigm that we live in right now, which really favors the masculine and historically has been very patriarchal in its dominance, I had to really wrestle with myself, because I'd go to work as a lawyer during the day and really be in my male energy and, kind of take no prisoners, and was good at that. And then had to connect to my female energy and step into that soft space. And it was so counterintuitive to me. I just had a real struggle. And yet that's where the information was. That's where the wisdom was. That was the access point, is to sit into my feminine energy. And when I felt like the universe wasn't giving me enough clarity, I would start to interrogate the universe like it was on the witness stand, and I'd lose the connection because I'd be in my male energy. So it really was a long kind of wrestling period of learning to trust and soften into my female energy, and not to see female energy as weaker or less than, but to see it as wisdom filled, right? And so eventually I had enough friends validate that experience, that what I was getting in meditation was accurate. And finally, one of my friends said, who are you talking to? And I said, I don't know. And I went back upstairs and sat down in my meditation chair and connected to, and said, who am I talking to? And my spirit said, welcome home. And tears rushed down my face. And she's like, this is who you came here to be. Get ready. And I just started taking notes. I would sit in meditation for 3 or 4 hours a day. And she would take notes on, like, this is what you're seeing in this person. This is the beginning of diabetes. This is the beginning of this. And she would just start showing me and letting me feel things, and then helping me feel that kind of the precursor emotions that would lead to this. And so I started taking notes and seeing other people, and my friends got better and they told their friends. And one day, I was married to my first husband then, and he came home and said, I think you have a practice, because there's people I don't know sitting in our living room like it's a waiting room. I was like, okay, wow. I have a practice. So I, left practicing law, left being a consultant, and and did this full time. And that was like 35 years ago. And I've really I work with a lot of women who are trying to leave their executive position in the corporate world, where they've established a lot of credibility and a lot of success by stepping into that male energy. And then how do you embrace that female energy without feeling like you're making yourself smaller, right? And it really takes a lot of conscious awareness and guidance to go through that journey. But I always say I've been from one end of the spectrum to the other, so I can usually meet people where they are and take them their next steps, right? And that's that gift, is build a bridge from where you are to where the client is and help them over it.
Okay, so let's just stay on this for a minute, because this is really key. Okay, love what you said, how that you can take them into more of the female energy and not thinking it's softer, but how do you literally help them do that? Like, let's get really practical for people here. Like, could you give us some real life examples just for the person listening? Like, everybody wants that. Yes, it sounds good. Sign me up. What do I do?
Right. And one of the first things that I have people do is find books or videos or podcasts that inspire you and remind you that there's a bigger picture at play, right? It doesn't have to be, I believe in God, I believe in the universe. It's that, as Einstein said, the more you know, the more you understand there's got to be a universal intelligence out there, right? And so when you can get reminded of that, then you feel a part of something larger, and you're more likely to lean into it and allow it to help you.
And trust
it. And when we forget that, we kind of become the turtle in its shell, and we isolate and we pull back and we go into our male energy to be the warrior out in front of us. Right? So to make that connection between how trusting and safe are you feeling right now, and the less safe and trusting you feel, the more your male energy is stepping forward to advocate for you and protect you. And so sometimes it's as simple as, like, I keep a video file. If I see a really cute video on YouTube or Instagram, I'll email it to myself and keep a file, because there's certain things that will soften me, right? So I'm a sucker for servicemen and women coming home and their dog losing its mind, right?
Yes.
And I'm like, oh my God, or babies who laugh uncontrollably and just get a fit of the giggles. Like, there's certain things that make me soften, right?
Yeah.
And so by watching those, I soften the edges of myself, where I'm not the prickly porcupine, and I get into that softer space. And then I might meditate, I might journal, I might read something that reminds me of the perfection of the universe.
That's awesome. I love that. That's so practical. Immediately what it made me think of was like baby animal videos.
Yes.
I actually just saw the other day on Instagram, that was, I forget what the channel was, but it was a couple reels of someone holding a newborn bunny in the palm of its hand. It was so small, and the little bunny had its eyes closed with the ears back, and it was just like this precious little innocent creature and immediately when you're saying that, I can feel in my body what you're trying to help us access is the softening. So what you're saying is to start keeping track of and doing things in our lives that literally help us to physically soften ourselves, which will then allow us to be more open to flowing things coming in. Like, what does that do?
So one of the visuals my spirit gave me early on is to picture male energy like an arrow coming out of the front of you, and to picture female energy like a satellite dish in front of you. So if your male energy kind of shoots out and gets things done, right? It's I got to go to the grocery store, and then I got to stop at the dry cleaner, and blah, 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 right? It's that direct arrow. And the satellite dish is when your best friend stands in front of you and you say, how are you? And she says, I'm fine. And you think, no, you're not, right? You can feel, you look at her body language, you hear the tone of her voice, you feel her energy. That satellite dish is just gathering information on like 10 different levels. And so it's not just logical and straightforward like that arrow, it's in the information gathering stage. That's your essence of your female energy versus your male, right? And ideally we make decisions by using our female energy to feel what is right for us right now, and then using the male energy to step into any action that's needed.
Brilliant. I love that. Arrow and satellite. That makes sense to me, because the satellite, I immediately envisioned like, you're not just, the whole action thing, but you're taking in the nuance, the tone, the body language, like you're perceiving the whole field, back to your point about the big picture.
if you think about a satellite dish allows things to land on it. Whereas, male energy goes out and plays detective, right? When I was a lawyer, I'm like asking you 1,001 questions to learn stuff. When I'm in my female energy, I'm allowing you to speak as you want to speak. And I'm paying attention and noticing and enticing more information and energy out of you, but I'm not going after it in that linear way.
Okay, so the male being more assertive, applying, the female more receptive, that keyword allowing. Can you just give us a quick example of when you were a lawyer, when you said when you learned to go into more of your female energy, like how would that have really looked in real life, Christine? Like, let's just say, you've got a witness on the stand and you're doing your masculine interrogation thing. Like, would there be a time when you shifted and just said, hey, I got to pull my feminine in here? Like, is there an example you could share?
I didn't do courtroom stuff. I did corporate stuff, and I was in-house counsel for a big bank, but we would negotiate workouts with like Macy's or some department stores that were trying to, say, oh, okay, we got to abandon this lease and leave you hanging with it. Right. And so, my male energy would be like, well, you sign this and you sign this, and here are your numbers, and look how we're running them. And right. And I talk fast enough, they can barely keep up, let alone argue with me. Right. So I would win those negotiations, but I might not feel so great about myself afterwards. When I would learn to dance back and forth with the male female energy, I would hold my male energy so that it formed a boundary. Like, you're not going to be able to steamroll over me, but I would use the female energy to ask a question and then just pause and allow them to answer. And by not responding right away, people get uncomfortable with the gap and they start talking again to fill the space. And that's when stuff gets revealed. And again, I'm not asking for them to reveal stuff so I can go for the juggler and butcher them, but it was just more of a noticing that I did and recognizing that my head knowledge was great because I went to a good law school and all of that, but that my intuitive wisdom was actually greater. I'm not the smartest person in the world. I didn't graduate top of my class from Harvard. I don't want to just rely on mental. I really want to access my soul's wisdom. If you're interested in this field, all the people listening to your podcast, they're older souls. Younger souls aren't interested in this.
That's right.
So if you're an older soul, why wouldn't you want to tap into that wisdom that you've carried with you from lifetime to lifetime instead of limiting yourself to what you learned in this lifetime?
Aho, amen. That's all I can say. Show over. Like, that's exactly right. I'm always saying, bringing all of yourself to the party, like we're not using all of what we can be. And that's why I'm so grateful I've lived this long to start to have the opportunity to incorporate all of who I am, because I did pretty good in my masculine as a female, but I was only using half of myself. So like you and so many, I was under the assumption or the programming that the feminine was the weaker. And, we grew up that you would make fun of someone and degrade them by calling them female body part names. I mean, that was, an insult. So, all right, this is already so helpful. I'm just so grateful for you. What I heard you say, and even researching you, Christine, is you really cultivated a relationship with your own soul primarily. That was really your first thing. What advice do you have for those that want to cultivate a relationship with their own soul? Any tips on how they can start doing that so they can tap into the wisdom, the intuition?
Yeah, I think there's 100 paths up the mountain being your connection with your soul in this case. And so find the one that opens you up and that you feel your resistance drop away. For some people, that's journaling. Other people, I say journaling and they make gag noises and they want to end the call, right? So I think that for each person, it could be different. For some people, it's meditating. For some people, it's walking in nature. For some people, it's standing at the beach, at sunset. Everybody's going to have a multitude of ways. I try to keep track of different ways that soften me or help me connect to my spirit in different times. So if I'm twisted up about a relationship thing, then reading books doesn't really help me. Then I'm going to listen to certain music and really just sit and meditate. If I have worries about my kids, I'm probably going to journal first because I'm going to end up saying the same thing 15 times. And then I'm going to read through and go, okay, here's the core of what I'm really worried about. And then sit and take that into meditation to connect to my spirit. So I think for each of us, it's about one, holding that strong intention And whether you do it through prayer or meditation or journaling or being in nature, it's saying, my number one goal is have a connection with my spirit. And in my sessions with people in my classes, that's always my goal is, I always say I want to put myself out of business because I want to connect everybody to their own spirit so you can hear the messages for yourself. I don't want any teacher guru status. I want to be that conduit that connects you to your spirit, and then you're off and on your way. And I have clients in my practice who've been with me for 25 years, 26 years, and I might talk to them once a year, once every other year, and they'll say, okay, I've been meditating each day, and these are the things I think I heard from my spirit, but I need clarity on these two things. And I'm happy to go in and get those extra details for them, but they're already living intuitively guided all the time.
They're doing their own work.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. And a true mentor, a true teacher, as you obviously are, is one that doesn't teach you what, it teaches you how.
Yeah.
The whole feed the fish, give the fish or teach them how to fish thing. That's beautiful. I love it. So important. You've mentioned meditation many times, and it's obviously a very important part of your process. Is there a type of meditation? Because there's there's different even definitions for what a meditation can be. Like you even mentioned, to me, sometimes meditation could be me kind of just being still in the woods, and I'm moving around, my eyes are open, I'm not sitting there, in a mudra and on the ground and, chanting. But to me, it's a form of meditation. So do you have a specific meditative technique, or do you use different ones, or what can you share with us in that regard?
I would say there are a few different things that I use, and I actually teach a class once a year on my meditation style that connects you directly to your spirit. So it's kind of the shortcut to hear your spirit. But I agree with you. Meditation can mean so many different things. For a lot of people, meditation means breathing techniques or yoga positions. And for me, my favorite quote from Buddha is, be still and know. And I think that meditation is about volunteering to be still and admit you don't know.
Yeah.
Right. That's what it is for me, is
Receiving.
I'm sitting in surrender, right? I'm just sitting and going, all right, I don't have all the answers. Let me just try to be open to what you can share with me. And when I do connect to my spirit each morning, one of the first things I say is, what would it benefit me to know right now? So I'm already assuming there's a boatload of stuff I don't know. Tell me the thing that would benefit me the most. So I'm coming in from that humble, open position when I ask that question, right? One of my other favorite questions to ask in meditation is, what am I not seeing? The question in itself, states that you're not already aware, right? And so it's questions like that have us bow our head, figuratively, right? And be humble in our quest. And so I think my style of meditation is about connecting directly to your spirit and asking questions and listening for an answer verbally or getting a visual. And you also can get clairsentience, right? This knowing throughout your body. And that's the most common, but also the most easily misunderstood, right? The most confusing at times. So practicing that, there's a lot of free guided meditations on my website that walk you through some things that I made so people could have kind of a starting point to do. And people can jump on my email list, and once or twice a year I do offer the class, and I do a free class beforehand to kind of give people a taste of it, so then they can sample it that way. But I would say seek the style of meditation that makes you feel like you're settling into yourself. We can get so caught up in the steps. Okay, I got to hold my hands this way, I got to sit this way, I got to do all that. Is kind of a lot of mental noise, right? It's just a lot of rules. And the more rules there are, the more your ego mind stays connected to the process, right? And so you really want something that allows you to just kind of breathe into it and feel that opening in the center of you.
Perfect. I love it. It's so bang on. In my experience, it's exactly accurate for me. I'm going to say that it seems like your ability to cultivate this part of your life and just be living this career, some of it has to do with your wonderful parents. You mention in your book that it's just so cute, because I guess you went to Catholic Bible school, and you mentioned how you got in trouble for asking questions. You sounded just like me, because you would ask the teachers, like, for example, where the animals on Noah's Ark went to the bathroom and how they kept the tigers from eating the gazelles and stuff. It's just great. You said you were relieved when your mother gave you permission to question everyone and everything. And this is a very important thing that we're going on in this great awakening and here in 2023 of what's happening for humanity is we need to retain and respect the right to ask questions, to question authority, to question what we've been told, to question what we believe. Is it true? Like Byron Katie's work. How do I know it's true? Are you sure it's true? I mean, this is very important. If we can't just ask the question to even verify if in fact, how do you know that's really true? And we're going to talk about beliefs and expectations from you in a bit. So hold that thought. But I just wanted to mention for the audience that your mother instilled in you in a young age that if you can't stand up to questioning, then it's not something worth believing in. And she gave you permission to think for yourself and to operate outside the rules if you had a good reason. So what I'm getting at here is I feel like that parenting was important, cultivating in your brain the ability to be a pioneer, to forge your own path, to go from your lawyer, traditional, conventional, respectable job to really following your own voice, which so many of us didn't do. God, I wish I had that when I didn't, but whatever, I'm doing it now. So I just want to see that, do you have any thoughts on that just the role of your parents and how that kind of parenting message would cultivate in children or people and encourage them to be true to their own soul and not worry about following the herd?
Well, I think so. In the client sessions I have now, I think I am amazed at how often we uncover for each client rules that they're following that were given to them when they were 3 and 4 and 5 years old. And sometimes they were given to them by omission, right? The child asked certain questions and all the adults got up and left the room and ignored them. They're like, okay, won't do that again, right? So it doesn't even have to be somebody says, that's the rule. We don't talk about that. We don't ask. It can just be the chilling of the room that the child figures out, okay, we don't talk about that. And how those things subconsciously become inner policemen for us and don't allow us to ask questions, to challenge things. And I always refer to healthy skepticism, right? I was a lawyer. I bring healthy skepticism to it. And one of the things that I take as a compliment is when I lecture in public in front of large audiences and people afterwards will say, you're kind of anti-woo-woo. I'm like, it's not that I'm anti-woo-woo. It's that I'm not just going to believe it just because somebody says, well, my astrologer told me this, or I'm supposed to do that, or that, I really need to feel it in my body and feel it resonate. And I'm all about seeking that resonance. And so, my mom and both my parents really gave me permission to just, if it doesn't make sense to you, go ahead and question it. And if you get in trouble, we'll back you up. Right. And that was so valuable. Right. And that, that advocacy for your kids, instead of just saying, of course the teacher's right, or do whatever the teacher says. I mean, I was always told I had to be polite and respectful.
Sure.
I couldn't just mouth off, but it was but that they weren't necessarily smarter than me because they were older, and that I had the right to question. And that really did allow me, when these things surfaced, these abilities surfaced. I mean, when they surfaced, there was like one medical intuitive out there. It was Carolyn Mace, right? Louise Hay had written, Heal Your Body, and that was it. And so, there wasn't much for me to go on. And I really ended up being self-taught. And that did take that pioneer energy to go forward. I love now that there are so many examples of people like me, like you, who are like, wait a minute, I'm going to do what feels right, not necessarily what the culture says I can make a lot of money doing. And I'm pursuing and helping my clients pursue what lights them up. Right. And I always say, if I won the lottery tomorrow, I would still do this. There's not much I would change. I would still see clients because it feels so in resonance and resonates every day as I work with clients. And to be a part of somebody's aha moment every day is such an honor, such a gift.
Wow. What a beautiful, how satisfying for you.
Yeah, very.
That's so awesome. I love it. I mean, because, I think the key thing here, Christine, for all humans we share is that people want to feel like they're making a difference, like they matter, like my life mattered, to
Well,
someone
that
or something.
your life is purposeful and purpose filled.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that, to go back to what you were saying before about being able to question things, I would encourage your listeners to start turning up the dial of awareness on how many rules you're following that you're not even consciously aware of. Right. So I've just noticed in the last week how often when people reach out to me, I feel compelled to answer them like I'm being super rude if I don't, even if it's somebody who's not even a client, who's asking for basically a free reading and all this stuff. And I'm like, that's so inappropriate. And yet I'll still feel like I need to answer their email in some way. Right. And that I'm like, oh, wow, there's that almost compulsive response from me, lets me know there's some rule that I'm trying to follow that I'm not even sure what it is. So I sat and I journaled and I'm getting clarity on that so I can deprogram myself from it.
See, the first thing I think of is being a people pleaser, that you don't want to disappoint that person or hurt their feelings or something. So when you're saying a compulsive response, you mean like immediately in that email, you would have been like, oh, sure, here you go, rather than thinking if it's something you wanted to do?
No, I might not answer for a day or two, but I'd be, downstairs, sweeping the front porch and going, I really never answered that woman who asked me that question. Even though it was outside of what I do, it's not my typical thing. And there's a kindness part of me, and that's fine. Yeah. But the part of me that's doing it not out of kindness, but because I should, and I should feel badly if I don't answer. That's the part I needed to examine. And then when I did, and I got clarity, I answered. I said, that's not really what I do. Here's my website. Here's some free tools you can use to maybe get answers for yourself. But I don't really do matchmaking. I don't really do some of these things that people ask for. And then I felt good about my response because I wasn't just blowing her off, which most of us tend to do if we don't know how to deal with something. We just kind of pretend it's not happening. And so I wanted to deal with it head on, but I wanted to deal with it from a more informed perspective. And that's what I walk a lot of my clients through, of like, well, wait, break down people pleaser. What are the aspects of people pleaser that drain you the most? Right? And where did they come from? And how can we free you from those? If you picture them like little fish hooks, how can we unhook each one for you? So now, yes, you're no longer a people pleaser, but you understand how you got there for each of those and what it means to not do it. You're not doing it out of rebelliousness or out of anger to turn away from those behaviors. You're doing it from a place of wisdom-filled understanding.
And even that's where the masculine comes in and putting down the boundary.
You can put up boundaries with male energy that are, again, informed by the female energy that says, here's what I know. Here's what I know serves me. Here's what I know honors you. Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. That's fantastic. The funny thing is you are really in the energy business, as am I. You're helping to teach people about how energy works, and most importantly, how energy works in our bodies and the body's way of communicating with us, because I agree with you that symptoms in the body are really biosymbolic of what's going on a lot of the time, short of getting in a car accident or something, acute like that. So can you give us a brief, your view on that, on how the symptoms that you're seeing in your 35 years of experience, from backaches to headaches to stomach problems to whatever, are almost always biosymbolic for people?
So sure, we store stress in our bodies because every living thing takes in energy and discharges energy, and the energy that is within your body, a large portion of it is used to run each organ and system, and then there's energy that operates your mental capacity, your mental and emotional space, right? And so when we have a negative thought or a frustration or a fear, that puts a negative charge on the energy that's in the body, and that energy gets stored somewhere. And where it gets stored tells us how you relate to that stressor. So a boss can walk into an office and yell, everybody sucks, and I hate this, blah, 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 right? He yells and screams and rants. And there's 5 people in there, and one person gets a headache, and one person gets a stomach ache, and another person gets low back pain. Well, the guy said the same thing to each person. Right. How did these people get different symptoms? And it has to do with how they internalize stress.
Wow.
Right? So the person that gets the headache, that I know is probably they're feeling disempowered. Okay. And then the person that gets the stomach ache is internalizing as being about him. Oh my God, he probably thinks I'm the one that's the biggest slackard in the office and blah, 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 right? And he's making that about him. And the person that gets low back pain, it's a different type of disempowerment, right? So there's these kind of shorthands that the body is able to use to say, this is how you relate. The fourth person loses her voice. And I'm like, okay, so she has a fear of speaking her truth and talking back to this guy, right? And so it gives us a starting point, and it's not the sum total of how you're incorporating, internalizing all the stress in your body, but it gives you a starting point. And so a client who comes to me and says, I have gum issues, teeth issues, throat issues, I lose my voice every time I get sick. I'm like, okay, now we know we're on this topic of speaking your truth, right? And what happened when you were a child and you spoke your truth? What happened to women in your household who spoke your truth? What does that look like? And then how has it catapulted you to where you are today, either out of anger and rebellion or suppression, or what does that look like? How does it show up in your interpersonal relationships? How does it show up at work? How does it show up in friendships? And tracing that through so that the person no longer, after a period of sessions, no longer has that as a symptom, but also has radically transformed how they speak their truth and how they understand when they suppress themselves.
And that's brilliant. I love it. I would think too, like for them to become conscious and aware, to drop into their body when something's happening, to what's happening in their body. Because we're living our lives from the neck up in our heads, and the over masculine thinking thing. So to your example, when the boss yells, you might be disconnected from your body from the neck down to be aware of what's happening in your teeth, your neck, your shoulders, your voice, your back. You don't even feel it because you're not in your body. You're in your head going, oh shit, he's yelling, she's yelling, whatever. What am I going to do? I got to cover my ass. I got to whatever, hide under the desk,
Yeah.
So most people I know, like even me, like I hadn't even been aware, like, oh wow, my shoulders just hiked up to because my neck gets tight, to my ears. And I wasn't even aware of that till I got a massage, and then they were back down where they were supposed to be. And I was like, oh my God, I got so used to being so tight. That became the new normal. So that becomes normal for us. And it's like, no, that's not normal for you to have no neck. Your shoulders should be down. You should have collarbones. Okay. So maybe some advice might be to be aware, to be in your body when you're feeling things, to feel where in your body you're feeling stuff, maybe?
Yeah. I mean, I think taking that inventory, right?
Okay.
There's a great exercise where you can sit, get quiet for a minute, tell yourself, I'm perfectly safe right now, and there's nothing else I need to do right now. When you establish those two things, you're more likely to get back in your body.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So you do that first, and then you think of 3 words that describe how your heart feels, how you feel emotionally, how your body feels, and how your mind feels. And that gets you started. And then from there, you can drop one level deeper and say, what does it feel like to be in my body right now? And then you can track, well, it feels really stiff on the right side, feels kind of numb on the left foot, feels it, right? But I see it when people go, oh, get in your body and see how you feel. I'm like, that's like saying, start speaking French right now. Like people are so far away from that, right? As you say, if they're talking heads floating around, to just immediately get back in the body with full awareness and cognizance like that is not a realistic thing for most people, right? And because we've been trained and reinforced from the time we were 5 and went to school to be performative on the mental level. Perform, perform, perform. So to say, now get in your body and feel, unless you were raised to be a pro athlete and really be in your body, it's been a long time since anybody rewarded you for being in your body. Right. And so to have that, some process, some version of what I just offered, where you do a stepping stone approach to getting in there and feeling what's actually going on in there. And people are amazed when I've done large group meditations, that when I walk them through a guided meditation to ask the body to talk to them, they're always shocked that the body will tell them, like, well, I actually have this pain from yesterday when I yelled at my kids, and I actually have this stiffness in my hip and it represents that. And they're like, how do I know that? I'm like, your body totally knows, willing to share it. It's just creating the space where you can actually hear it and believe that you can get those messages.
Wow, that's really interesting, because I've got an issue with my right hip. And I actually, I found out on an x-ray years ago recently that there's like actually I don't want to say a bone spur, but there's like a growth, like a golf ball on my hip there where my body put down bone on that right side, and my whole spine had shifted a little bit to the left. So my body put bone down on the right hip to counterbalance and I really think it was from a sports injury where I was an athlete, and I can't even tell you how many concussions and injuries. And I used to actually play soccer with boys. And I mean, I was like hardcore athlete. So God knows which time this actually happened. But my point is, you're making me think now, because now as I've gotten older, it's starting to really be a part of my life. Let's just say it reminds me.
To talk to you.
Yes, pretty much every morning. Like, I'm like, oh, my hip, and I got to stretch, and I'm walking my dogs, and I got to stop, and I got to do this thing where I kind of open my hips.
So I would encourage you to start using the power of visualization, because energy follows intent. I chant that at people all the time. And visualizations are simply holding one strong intent or intention for 2-3 minutes. And that's all it takes to really start shifting the energy in your body to work on your behalf. And so I would start doing a visualization where you picture a little soft piece of sandpaper or a little like a pumice stone or something, and it does feel like a calcium deposit, what you're describing, right? So I wouldn't call it a bone spur, but it does feel like, when you say laid down bone, it feels like a calcium deposit to me.
Okay.
So I would do a visual of some little thing, sanding that off a tiny bit each day. We don't need to be aggressive, right? We're just going to gentle your body into releasing what it no longer needs. You're not playing soccer. The boys aren't kicking you anymore. These things aren't happening. So you kind of are comforting your body into breaking down that calcium it doesn't need, that's now impinging and causing workarounds, right? So your body's having to shift and work around that, and that's uncomfortable. So I would start dissolving it little bit by little bit. You don't want to do it all at once. We're not asking for kidney stones with all this free floating calcium in the body, right? And make sure you take plenty of magnesium so it counterbalances and how it's absorbed. And I would just start kind of gentling your body into resolving that without feeling like I'm stuck with this forever because I played sports.
So gentling your body. Okay. Gentling your body. So a loving way of shaving it down.
Yeah. Just making a gentle suggestion, and then trusting that if the body doesn't respond, it's because the body's going, no, I actually need this. And then you can sit and inquire in meditation, in journaling. Why does my body need this? What does it represent?
Yeah.
What is it trying to tell me? Sometimes your body won't let go of something until you get the message that's behind it. I don't feel like there's a message behind it in this. I feel like it represents actually different areas of your life where you feel stuck. So acknowledge that, right? Okay, this represents some stuckness. So the idea of, again, having water or gentle sandpaper whittle off a little bit at a time invites flow to replace the idea of stuckness, right? And I think that metaphor can help you in a lot of areas.
I love this. So we just did an impromptu example. Like, can you explain for us what just happened there? Because you didn't even stop, Christine, to go into your space, obviously you've been doing this 35 years. You're obviously a consummate pro, but could you just share with the rest of us mere mortals what just happened there, that you just so effortlessly went right into what you were seeing and feeling? What happened?
As you start describing a symptom, it's like a cone of energy opens up in front of that part of your body, and my spirit gives me a visual. Here's what's happening, right? It's like I get a little cartoon image, and then I hear suggestions. So a lot of times I will close my eyes, formally connect to your spirit. But right before we started, I connected to your spirit. So she's kind of sitting off to my left here, ready to talk anyway. So as you started sharing it, she's like, well, it does represent stuckness. So I'm just listening to her and you at the same time and being that translator. And yeah, I guess because I've been doing it so long, I sound really brilliant, but I'm really just channeling other people's spirits who are way smarter than me. And it's just these suggestions that can come in, and then I watch your energy, and if I say a word or a phrase and then I feel resistance, then I'll say to your spirit, she doesn't like that word. That doesn't resonate for her. And she'll suggest something else, right? So sometimes I'll suggest 1 or 2 exercises because we're looking for that alignment in you where people kind of lean forward and go, yes, that, right? And so that when you lean forward the most is when I told you that it represented stuckness in other areas where you believe that things are more difficult than they should be or than they need to be, and you're like, why, and then that little bone growth there represents that. It's the nodule in your way, right? The little obstacle you don't know how to move.
Crap. that's my intelligent answer. How's that? Wow. Now this must be really hard for you to do on a digital medium. Like you just did that, because you're saying you're reading my body.
It really isn't. It really
because that's what I mean. Like, how could that have been so effortless for you?
I'm primarily clairaudient, so I hear. So as soon as, like, even before Zoom was about, I have clients all over the world, and I could just do it over the phone. I prefer to watch, because then I can also, like I said, watch for your energy and that resonance. But and it lets clients feel more connected to me when they can see me. But really it's mostly auditory for me. So as you know, and sometimes as soon as somebody sends me a photo and says, I have a sore throat, I'm like, oh, there's a bacteria, I can see it, right? I'm really hearing the word bacteria, and then my spirit kind of shows me a visual. But wow, it really does kind of happen in an instant if you're open, right? If I'm walking around the grocery store and somebody says, did you notice that guy? I'm like, no, I'm so not in that mode, right? It's definitely something I want to turn off, because I want to respect people's privacy.
Sure.
And so, but when I'm on and working with somebody, it's pretty effortless.
And what I love about you trying to teach the rest of us how to do it for ourselves. So as we get toward the end here, any tips on how we can do that? Like how we can hear our own soul communicating with us what it needs to know, or what
I would say the first thing that we need to be able to hear our spirit is quiet, is that silence and that stillness. Okay. And it feels so counterintuitive in our busy world to just, quote, do nothing, right? I mean, I'm guilty of it too. If I'm sitting in my car in front of the dentist office because my appointment's in 10 minutes, I could just sit and meditate. And a lot of times I'll pick up my phone and go on social media instead, or I'll check my emails, or I'll check my text. And it's like, wow, we've had this almost obsession with filling every second with mental stimulation, right? And especially with social media and all that stuff, we're chasing those little dopamine hits. Well, how funny is that? No, I've seen funnier videos, right? And we just keep scrolling, looking for the thing that's going to make us laugh or be shocked or whatever. And to really step away from that and say, I value feeling inspired and connected to my spirit more than I value those little dopamine hits. That takes some self-control and self-awareness of what we're doing. So just making that time to be still and be quiet and see what's there for you, right? See what comes up.
So important. Yeah. And it only takes moments. I think, that's what I hear you saying. Okay. Before I let you go, I just have to finish this mindset idea, because there's another beautiful example in your book, one of the chapters, where you talk about expectations, beliefs, and the importance of feeling special. In that, in your situation, you gave an example of your finances after your divorce, and you realized you were struggling in your financial life, and you had to talk with your soul, and your soul basically was like, because you're not expecting it anymore, and your soul basically guided you. This is just a very interesting take on it, which I love, which women in particular need to hear, because we're all about humility. Everyone's equal human beings, rights, respect, love. Yes, I'm all about it. But I liked how you had a very interesting message of your soul is telling you, well, wait a second. I want you to think about how you feel like you are actually special. Because if you feel like you're special in some regard, then your expectation of having an extraordinary life rather than an ordinary life is there. So why, you're not expecting to be the programming that you were told, that life is hard, you got to work hard and you're going to struggle. Rather, we want you to think of yourself as special, and you deserve and can expect to have an easier, more abundant life. So tell us about that, because I tried to paraphrase it. I probably didn't do it well.
I think in social media, people want to be famous, right? Whether they're on TikTok or whatever, there's this desire to be famous and this desire to be amazing. And what I tried to instill in my two boys is try to be unique instead, right? And so when you're unique, or that you're using the word special, but when you're unique, you're outside of the regular muggle category, right? The regular muggle category is everybody has to work hard, nothing comes for free in this world, blah 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 blah, right? It's the programming, as you say, and it serves the overall population because it creates a lot of worker bees, right? And yet, if you want to have experiences and results that are outside of the norm, then you have to look for the things that make you in that category of outside of the norm. And once you're outside of it, then you can free yourself from all that paradigm systematic rules, right? And so that's that approach that I was trying to describe there. Is my spirit said, well, once you stop feeling like you're an exception to the rule, then all the regular muggle rules apply, and you're going to have this kind of grinding it out kind of life. And it's financial hardship, and it's never really getting ahead because you make a little more money and then your car breaks down and all this stuff, because that's the collective experience. Mm-hmm. And if you really want to have that top 10% experience, you got to find something that puts you in that top 10%. It might be an ability. It might be how much you care. It might be how much you volunteer. And not because you have to earn your way there. It's the essence of who you are is that unique, right? What is that unique thing about you? And when I could claim that and step into that, then those financial limitations and all those things sort of fell away over a period of like 6 months. It all turned around.
So can I ask you what you literally zeroed in on for that example? Like, what did you find about you that was unique, that liberated your finances?
That I was willing to speak about things that made people uncomfortable, right? Because now we're talking 20 years ago. I was willing to I was willing to go into schools and corporations and lecture on how your symptoms might have messages from your body. And a lot of HR people just hung up on me. We talked about that, right? It was like, yeah, we don't have any budget left. Boop, hang up.
Yeah.
And so, but to have that kind of courage to say, just like I was given permission by my parents to question, rules that the Catholic nun would say to me, like, if you can question how it's always been done and what everybody says you should believe, question from a respectful place and say, I really think there could be a better way. What about this? That's outside of the norm and is unique. And if I'm doing it from a place of wanting to be of service and help, that takes me out of the average guy category and puts me over here. And then things just started showing up for me, and my private practice just took off.
So important. I just had to ask you that because I thought that was just such a beautiful element of your amazing book. Okay, Christine, last thing, putting you on the spot. Does my soul have anything that you can share with us and as an example of your work about what's going on with why I haven't manifested my dream house in 3 years of looking every single day?
Okay, let me ask your spirit. She said there's a conflict in you between what you want and can feel is part of your future. So your intuition is accurate. That is out there. The kind of property you're looking for is out there. And that's what your future is. And the timing of where you're supposed to be right now. She said, you can feel that you're supposed to be close to your mom, but you're also thinking, but I should also be able to create this thing because you're so eager for it. And she said, being enthusiastic, being eager for it can draw it into you, but it won't change the timetable that honors your relationship with your mother and what you karmically have contracted to do with her. So your first step is to feel, instead of asking the universe, and I'm not saying you do ask it in this way, but instead of asking the universe, where's the perfect place for me? Like what state is my property even in, right? Where am I going? And that's a natural thing that we want to know. We want to know our future, right? We want to have that. So instead of asking, where am I going to end up? Ask, when do you recommend I start looking? Because I think the answer would be not yet.
Obviously, after 3 years,
but I think
still not here.
But I think if you'd asked it last year and the beginning of this year, you would have gotten that same answer. And then because what happens is when we're pushing something that the timing isn't right, and let's say the universe wants you to start looking in November of this year. I'm making that up. I don't know. then all of the time that you've spent, these 3 years looking, has gone into the frustration bucket of how hard it is to find the right property, how it is, and all these things. Like, I made offers on these properties and I didn't get it. Well, it's because that wasn't your time. But the ego stores it as evidence of how hard this is. And now when you do want to create, now your ego's made 15 different roadblocks between that thing coming to you because you spent all this time over here chomping and churning when it wasn't the right time. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, and I'm not saying it's November, October when you should look. I'm saying what your spirit is craving is for you to ask her, sit in meditation and ask, when should I start looking?
Oh.
Because that's a sign of respect to say, yes, I want what I want. And you're right, I can feel it. And it's part of me. When is the right timing for me and everyone I've karmically contracted with? If the people that are, let's say you're going to open a retreat center and it's going to do XYZ retreats, the people who are meant to come to these XYZ retreats, they're a year away from being ready yet. Well, then the universe is going to time all of that back so that it all staggers just right. So you don't open this thing and nobody comes for 6 months because you open it prematurely and now you're hemorrhaging money because people aren't coming. So what feels like obstacles to us so often is the universe trying to protect us from ourselves, because we get a whiff of something. Oh, I'm supposed to move to Florida at some point, and we're down there shopping every weekend. And the universe is like, I meant next year, but okay, right? So then you're going down there all the time and wondering why none of our offers are accepted. And then when the right date arrives, then it all comes into play. And sometimes we can't get it exact, but you can feel into when to start looking, when to make it happen.
Yeah. Well, this really resonates is right on, because I've already just I've let it go. I can honestly say I've had to, Christine, after 3 years of frustration. And it's like, okay, I do feel like it's going to happen. That's the good thing, because I kind of bounced around with that. I went through a depression and and then an anger, like, why isn't this happening? But now I can truly say I get the whole surrender thing and just letting it go and trusting, because I really do feel it is going to happen. And I've really leaned into, okay, I just have to let it go. When it happens, it happens. It could be a year, 2 years. Right now, I'm okay. Life isn't horrible. I'm very blessed. So it might be a year, it might be 2 years. I've kind of sat back in the being okayness with the fact I didn't get it, rather than being the bratty little tantrum kid going, why can't I have this?
It's watching ourselves, because if we go into victim consciousness in any way, I've been looking for 3 years. I made all these offers. I mean, I have people who've said, I made 6 offers on houses and Chinese buyers beat me out every time, or this kind of, all cash buyers beat. And I'm like, okay, but it's understandable to be frustrated. But when we go into our victim consciousness, we invite more of the same.
Yeah.
Right. Because the definition of self is there. And then the universe is like, okay, she wants to be this. Right. And so we don't want to tell a lie and like, it's all great and I'm finding all these places, if that's not our reality. But we need to find a way to phrase it such that we're in the process.
Yep.
Right. So if you can phrase it in your own mind, some version of, I can feel that this is in my future and I'm excited for it. And I'm trying to stay open and aware to clues that are sent to me. That's your only job right now.
100%. And happy right now. Happy without it. Happy and grateful without it. This has been unbelievably enlightening, helpful, encouraging, educational. I'm all kinds of pumped up. How are you feeling?
I'm good.
All right.
It's always fun to talk about this stuff.
Yeah, I guess so. Now, any last thoughts with how anything to make you feel complete in this conversation today? Anything you want to impart to the audience before we close?
I would just say your spirit is always listening, right? Your body's always listening. Your spirit's always listening. Put out that intent. I want a better connection with you, right? And then pay attention to, your dreams, the synchronicities, the people you run into, the books that come across your path, all of that. The universe will just start working with you on that. And there's free stuff on my website, christinelang.org, that you can go and utilize those free tools. There's so many great free tools out there to kind of help facilitate that connection between you and your spirit.
And that's Lang, Christine Lang. And you also, in addition to your amazing book, The Body Whisperer, right here on my YouTube channel, Awakening Aphrodite Podcast. This is it right here. Amazing book, everybody. You're also offering online courses and individual coaching, right? Or sessions, right, Christine?
Yeah, I do private sessions. It's not easy to get in with me. I know I usually book 2 to 3 months out. So
Wow.
I apologize. It's not easy to get in with me, but if you have a specific medical thing that you're not sure of, people also will sometimes email me ahead of time and say, I've got this specific thing, and I'm happy to connect with somebody's spirit and see if I'm the best person to help or not. I never want to waste somebody's time or money. But yes, you're welcome to go to my website. And I do offer like free events periodically just to give people a chance to work with me, or inexpensive classes that are $25, $35, so people can jump on a Zoom class and have some experience of my work.
Yes, I love that you're teaching us how to do it as well. And I couldn't let you go without mentioning, I love the fact you were a dog trainer. Immediately I was like, oh God, that's like another common thing that we have. I love that so much. And I'm sure that's obviously was a stepping stone to get to where you are now because of that intuitive feeling, energy.
Yeah, I didn't realize how much I was doing it intuitively and reading the dog's body language and kind of hearing their thoughts, almost knowing when they understood what the command was and when they didn't. So yeah, it's funny how often sessions incorporate somebody's dog or cat and me doing some animal communication and figuring out why is that dog limping and why is that dog doing that weird behavior. So it all comes into play.
Isn't it beautiful how retrospect is so 2020 vision, is just such a gift. You're looking back now on the steps of your life and your journey and how it's all starting to weave together. I think that's the blessing of having years on the planet. You can look back and start to see the connections, like you said, the breadcrumbs. So that's beautiful. Very inspiring to the rest of us. Christine Lang, everybody, please do check out her website, all her resources, and the show notes will contain all that information if you're driving or you're not able to see it or hear it. I'm really grateful, everyone. Thank you for being with us. Christine, keep doing the great work in the world and teaching us how to connect with our soul, because that's truly the Holy Grail right there. We'll see you next time, everybody. Thanks for watching and listening. Bye-bye. Would you like to support my mission to help empower people all over the world to be all of who they truly are? If so, please subscribe to the show, leave a review on iTunes, and share it with a friend. And if you're looking to take immediate action to align your energy and optimize your health, visit amyfournier.com. Thanks for listening to Awakening Aphrodite. Let's awaken her together in you. I'm your hostess, Amy Fournier, and I already can't wait to be with you again and for you to hear what I have planned for the next show.
Thanks for listening to Awakening Aphrodite with Amy Fournier. To learn more about Amy, check out her website, amyfournier.com. That's AMYFOURNIER.com. You can also check out Amy's live and on-demand virtual fitness and yoga classes, and sign up for her newsletter to receive a free mini ebook of 3 of her top tips for making holistic health a lifestyle. Again, that's amyfournier.com, and get your ebook sent to your email immediately. Connect with Amy on the daily on Instagram at FitAmyTV, FITAMYTV, and watch many of the podcast episodes and subtopic clips on her YouTube channel, which is also FitAmyTV. Enjoy, and we'll see you next time on Awakening Aphrodite.